Welcome to Reliability Matters, a podcast for the electronic assembly industry. Each episode covers topics related to reliability, best practices, and environmentally responsible assembly techniques, with insights from experts across the electronic assembly industry. Now, here's your host, Mike Conrad.
You mentioned the word SMEMA, which of course was a, not earlier, they're still around, but a standards protocol, communication protocol. If someone has some legacy equipment, and I already know the answer to this because I'm setting you up here. If someone has some legacy equipment and they want to say they buy something that's got the Hermes protocol and they want it to be able to talk to some older SMEMA machines, something tells me you guys have come up with a solution for that.
Yeah,
and it might look a little bit like that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Okay. So Quentin. Yeah, we got to get to the names. I'm not going to let you off the hook on the names of your interesting products here, but tell me what this is right here.
So it just converts the SMEMA signals to the Hermes equivalents. So you lose the intelligence of the Hermes standard, but as it goes through the SMEMA equipment, you want to keep hold of that data of the board that's traveling down the line. So it just simply stores it until the SMEMA signal at the other end goes, I'm going to release that board. Right. So it's an adapter.
Right.
And
if it was...
We fell into it.
and if it wasn't Hermes, it could be CFX, which is the other... what's the name of that? I can't read it on my monitor. What's the name of this machine?
Jasper.
Okay.
We've got this under development. So again, it's the thought process of whether... Hermes will run over CFX, or whether you would need some SMEMA interlocking, which is quite common. To start the line currently uses SMEMA. Have you got Clive?
No, I don't have Clive.
Oh, you don't have Clive. So Clive is our SMEMA only. So it provides the SMEMA interlocking. It's such a I presume the solutions are already out there, but we had so many requests of people that just want to stop and start SMEMA, and all SMEMA is basically a traffic light system. It's a stop, start, break a circuit, open a circuit solution, signal-based messaging system. And a lot of customers just wanted. They were trying to buy Quentin, and I was saying you don't need Quentin.
Okay, before I ask you my last question. Clive, Quentin, where are these names coming from?
I don't know. Clive is obviously an older chap, so
there you go. Okay,
he's named after Clive Sinclair, which is the British computing entrepreneur. Quentin, there's no real link. I googled sophisticated names. To answer your question properly, I guess there is an importance of, like I was talking about before, about ownership and identity. So yes, why can't you name your solution a name, a normal human name? Why not?
My last question for you before we wrap this up is I'm going to ask you to get out the crystal ball and predict the future. And now the future in software world is like 10 seconds from now is the future, and the distant past is maybe 20 seconds ago. So where, from your perspective, the world according to David, is what do you believe will be the next industrial revolution? 5.0. What's coming?
Oh, you throw me then. I was going to predict the future.
And what's happening with our current, what's the future of within 4.0, maybe 4.1, 4.2? What does that future look like? And then what's the next big revolution in your world?
Okay, I'll try and park the question of 5.0 for a minute in the back of my mind. I think generally community, obviously, is going to improve. We're going to be more connected, I'm hoping. As the generation comes up, the next generation comes up, they're going to want an element of community. I'm already seeing that with LinkedIn. I remember when LinkedIn was a no-go zone. It was, it's only for recruitment. Do not go there. And I remember one of my chairman of the company I worked for. He advised me to get on LinkedIn. I thought, and he was quite an elderly guy at the time, still is. And I can see by LinkedIn the companies that are with it and on board and modernizing, let's say, and the amount of staff that are engaging. And this is, again, the barriers that need to be removed, which is the sales and marketing manager should not be the only person speaking for your company. It should be, I want to hear from engineers. I want to hear from the community around. So I think that's definitely going to change over the next 10 years or so. I think the sales process might change a little bit. It was interesting to listen to your previous guests about they published prices. I think this. If we want to go to digitalization and e-commerce, then it has to go 100% that way. How that works with a distribution network, with people want to take their cut, but then, if we have the silver tsunami, maybe those businesses will kind of morph into other kind of be more service-based. Well, they're already service-based, but very technical service-based, localized companies. But yeah, how that works, I don't know. I know why people don't publish numbers and all that kind of stuff. But there is one company that does, and that's Apple. And they're currently in the news quite often because the games developers want a lesser cut, or they want Apple to take a lesser cut of their income. But Apple doesn't want this. And I can tell you the reason that is not because Apple wants to make lots of money. Of course it does. It's because as soon as you have that complex sales structure, you have to employ lots more people, and it gets really messy. And people say, "Oh, you've given them a discount, so why can't you give us a discount?" So it makes it really simple, really simple, and the customer knows at the very start of what it's like going to a supermarket and going to the supermarket checkout and saying, "Oh, this is a 5, I want this for 2." You just wouldn't,
right.
But because it's very in front of you that is the price. So I think we're going to go down that avenue. Whether it happens with large equipment, I don't know. It would be amazing if it did, but who knows? I think the next one is scrutiny of the industry, because with community, you're going to get scrutiny. So I follow a YouTuber called Dave Jones, the EV blog, and he dismantles and reviews lab equipment. And obviously that's fairly consumer, it's fairly it's fairly reachable kind of thing to review. But in this YouTube world, we're going to get more scrutiny, maybe by customers, maybe by reviewers. At the moment, we live in a world of, the journalists are sponsored, so they're not going to say anything too bad. And this is where this community element is going to open up scrutiny. And so I would just say be ready for that. I think the next generation will be, but it's interesting. So when the Hermes standard first came out, I did a peer review on the internet, and I just, as a peer review, it's not going to be totally positive. I said that it's a very raw technology, but it does the job. It's not really Internet 4.0, Industry 4.0 kind of stuff, but it does the job. I never got any feedback, but I'm sure certain people took it certain ways. But I think that's the future. People will literally go and say what they view on certain things, whether it's a topic or a piece of equipment. So just be ready for that.
Well, David, thank you so much for taking that time out of your coding schedule late at night. I appreciate it. For my audience who would like to know more about David and his company without a name, I will have links to David's contact information and website in the show notes. So if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, go to that podcast app and look at the show notes, and the information will be there. If you're watching this on YouTube, right down here, there's a button that says Show More. Click that and you'll see David's contact information. David, thanks again for being my guest. I really enjoyed our conversation. We hit a lot of different points, but I do, hopefully we sewed it all together at the end for everybody. So thanks again.
Thank you, Mike.
All
thanks for inviting me.
My pleasure. Well, that's another episode. Thanks for listening or watching the Reliability Matters podcast. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe to Reliability Matters on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on our newest channel, Amazon Music, or virtually wherever you get your podcasts. A special thanks to Circuit Assembly Magazine's PCB Chat at pcbchat.com and Ascendo Reliability at reliability.fm for syndicating the show.